Welcome. It's really great to have you and to be with you this afternoon. It's truly an honor to speak. I've been doing a lot of speaking at Rotary clubs and I'm falling in love totally with Rotary. It's really phenomenal to see. You should see how all the other Rotary clubs run. None of them are quite as gorgeous as yours is, but I'm lucky to be here today. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you after lunch. My name is Dr. Fred, and in the next 20 minutes, we're going to discover things about ourselves that are holding us back from being the people that we already know that we are. And the question I want you to be asking yourself during this talk is, where are you, the real you, not being heard? Where in your life are you not being heard? And if we were able to identify that during this conversation, that would be large enough for a 20-minute call. But we're going to do a lot more than that. We're going to learn how single-handedly, like starting right now today, you're going to be able to turn that around and actually be heard for who you are, not only today, but every day for the rest of your life. I've been a doctor for over 30 years, and I've been in the mental health field for over 40 years. And I'm going to help you get there today. And I won't have to use comments like it'll only hurt for a moment or, take two of these and call me in the morning. We're going to keep this entirely pleasant and entirely painless. And we're still going to take care of this super large activity and challenge. I ask you, where do you want to, where is it in life where you want to be heard? What do you want to maybe get along better at work? Or maybe you want your children or your spouse to communicate more effectively with you. Or maybe you want relationships that you have with others, your business partners, to grow. Or maybe you want that raise, or maybe you want that corner office, or maybe you want to just improve your relationships with other Rotarians or other friends or family, or to join a different community. All of those things are going to require a little bit of an improvement in your communication, and I have your back today. What I have to say might shock you, but I have that the biggest threat in the world today is not what you think it is. It's not a virus. It's not climate change. It's not racism. It's not sex trafficking. It's not even war. All of those things are threatening all of humanity and all of the planet, and they're calamitous and monstrous in their own size, each one just totally monumental. But they aren't the biggest threat in the world. The biggest threat in the world is that we collectively are starting to give up on speaking our own true voice. Why is that a bigger threat? Because all the things I just listed are, in order to get around them or to get through them, are going to require authentic conversations with people like you and me. And if we can't speak, then no one will ever hear us. Now, if we can't speak, we certainly can be hearded. And if we can't speak our true voice, no one will ever know us. But if we do speak our true voice, we can bring forth healing, peace, and love. So I ask you, if you learned right now that today was the last day of your life, what would you do between now and midnight? I'd like you to think about that for a moment, because what most people answer with that is that they would find someone they know or someone that they love and tell them a truth. You might tell them that you love them. You might tell them that they're the most important person in your life. Or you might want to just seek out and tell them something you haven't told them enough or never told them before. Maybe you would call a friend and say that you were just wanting to clear up that you took $5 from them 20 years ago. More than likely, however, you would reach a truth, because you know what the truth is, and you also know where you're not speaking it. Today, we're going to take some steps into getting access to speaking that extremely important thing called your truth. In fact, true voice ends all wars. Every war, internal and external, are only ended when we get authentic with ourselves and others. Henry David Thoreau said this: "The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation and go to their grave with their songs still in them." Amazingly sad, a true tragedy. We all just want to be heard. And it's really true. We really want to be heard for who we are so that we can be loved and respected for being that person. But if that's all we really want, why has it become so difficult to speak our true voice? Any thoughts or ideas about that? Oh, I have trouble hearing. I'm not sure what you said. Can someone help me with what just got said?
Don't want to
Exactly.
break.
Right, right. We don't want to offend. Thank you for coming up. We don't want to offend. We're afraid we're going to be judged. We have some fears, or maybe that we're not, we're just resigned. It didn't matter. No one's going to hear us anyways, kind of thing. That's really setting in this resignation. My point today is to show us how we can get our voice out into the room. And not only that, be applauded for it when we do. If not out loud with actual claps, certainly in the hearts and minds and the souls of those who are with us. So, my name is Dr. Fred, and I'm commonly known as the undoctor, among other things. And along with being a doctor, I was trained at Northwestern University. I'm a true doctor. I've had 40,000 patients in my life, but I'm also other things, including a 2-time college dropout. So, how did I go from being a 2 times college dropout to being an international psychiatrist practicing around the world? I'm going to give you a little bit of my story. I was born in March of 1958 to a family that was actually hoping for me, was actually counting on me to bring joy and peace, understanding and communication to their world. I had 2 brothers, 10 and 14 years older than me, and the family was in a fair amount of chaos and disarray, so I'm told. And little Freddie was going to come out and bring that type of joy. They were just waiting, anticipating. So I've had a full-time job of communicating since the very second that I arrived. I did pretty well for a few years. My brothers, I'm sure my brothers would probably argue that, as I became just a little kind of a nuisance of a kid, but I spoke a lot and they taught me how to be quite kind of precocious. I knew how to read, I knew how to write, and I knew how to do a little bit of math when I entered kindergarten, and that set me aside from some of my other co-students. They were sitting there throwing blocks and picking their nose, and I wanted to read Henry Huggins. The truth is, I was also throwing blocks and picking my nose. Let's make no doubt about that. But I wanted to read on top of that. I became so enchanted with the notion of communicating that I decided I wanted to be a master communicator. I watched my 4 family members speak with each other, and I even helped my family understand my now younger sister. And I knew that communication was really where it was at. So I suspected that I would learn how to communicate as I went ahead in school, maybe with the big kids in 4th or 5th grade. But when I got to 4th or 5th grade, that didn't work either. It was kind of backwards, and they were communicating even less. So I thought, oh, junior high will be where it happened. And in junior high, it actually got a little worse in elementary school. And the same thing in high school. I got to high school so sure that I'd learn how to communicate effectively in the classroom. And in fact, we were really just being told to mute ourselves. And it wasn't really communication. I was kind of sad about that. And I was doing my fair amount of communication outside of the classroom, but I really wanted to learn how to be an effective communicator. So, because I loved their helmets and they weren't too far away from my home in Detroit, I went to the University of Michigan. I went there for about a year and a half and learned that communication was really the last thing that University of Michigan was about too, at least in the world of open discourse. I was being told to sit there and watch the professor perform duties that I had never seen before, that I really couldn't understand when they delivered it, and learn how to regurgitate exactly back to them that which they showed me. That is actually the opposite of communication, and I got tired of that and left the school altogether. I did what anyone in my age group might have done at that time, and that was hop a Greyhound bus. And I went all the way to Berkeley, California so that I could find myself. Remember those days? I went there and I actually found myself in the world of Berkeley, but I didn't have a job. So I had to call home, like, what am I going to do? They said, well, come back to school. And I went back to school to learn how to be a computer guy. The only computer in Michigan at the time was at the University of Michigan. It was like a 2-acre facility. And we would spend all night there doing punch cards and stuff. And that just did not appear to be a life that I wanted either. So I dropped out again. When I came home, I told my mom that I would never go back to school again, never, ever, ever go to university again. And she said, "Well, that's okay. You don't have to. It's true, but you got to get a job." So she got me an application for a job at a state hospital working with adolescent boys. Although I only thought I would be there for about 3 weeks because I expected to go through orientation, just get enough money to buy me a car, and then go figure out what my life was about. But by the fourth week, one of my people, my friend Paul, introduced me and encouraged me to come up to the floor. So I met the kids on the floors in that fourth week. And I actually fell in love with that job because I was communicating as a living, getting paid about 13 something dollars an hour to come into the afternoon shift and share conversations with these sometimes troubled young boys. But sometimes they weren't as troubled as even the staff that was there. So I began to communicate really, really effectively with them, learn from them, teach them, and create a resonance inside of human connection. That was really beautiful. I really did like that job. But the thing I hated about that job, and I mean hated, was the way that psychiatry was treating those kids. See, we would call the psychiatrist and say, "Jimmy's up too late," or "Timmy and Johnny just got in a fight." And the doctor would come down from his call room, maybe speak to Timmy for about 3 seconds, maybe speak to us for about 7 seconds. Then he'd go into the chart room and take out his weapon. Some people call it a pen. And he would put that pen to paper and write an order. Then us childcare workers would have to go find Timmy, bring him into the quiet room and hold him down while we jammed him full of very powerful sedatives through an injection. Now, if Timmy stayed quiet for the next 12 or 24 hours in a stupor, we would call that a success story. By the way, that's still happening in all the state hospitals and most of the hospitals around the country. I didn't accept that. It was barbarian. And I love these kids, and I just didn't see how taking away their communication was somehow helpful. I made it my business to go back to school. My brother was already a psychiatrist, 14 years my senior, and I knew I could be a psychiatrist and bring communication back effectively into the psychiatric world. So I did just that. And over the next 13 years, I got accepted to Northwestern, and then I went to residency and a fellowship. And before too long, I indeed was a child and adolescent psychiatrist. Unfortunately, a major event happened in 1987 while I was going through school, and that was the advent and then the introduction of a drug that we all know called Prozac. Prozac changed psychiatry entirely. Prozac made it so that if you were uncomfortable, that's because you were sick. We had this idea that if you were depressed, you were sad, you were anxious, you were troubled, you were fearful, if you were scattered, if your thoughts ran amok, there was something wrong with you. And we had it that medications would be the new answer in the form of chemical imbalances. Now, that, of course, was very troubling to me because the reason I went into psychiatry in the first place was so that I wouldn't have to do exactly that. But now I was being called on to be an expert in psychopharmacology, and in fact took that on because, after all, I went to school for 26 years total, and I really wanted to do what I needed to do and maybe inject communication into the business. It was no easy task. Over those next several years, I had thousands of patients, approximately 40,000 between then and now, and I've written for over 100,000 prescriptions. Now, none of those prescriptions felt good to me. Each and every one of them reminded me of why I was in the field. And even though it was being called for, I was doing what I should. I was doing what I was called on to do. I was doing what was expected of me, but I wasn't doing what I knew was right. That's called duplicitous. That's called pretentious. That's called living a life inauthentically. So in 2006, I made a change, and I call this moment my true voice moment. I began to take my low-risk patients off their medicine. I know that sounds so radical, like totally off their medicine. It's funny that we don't feel afraid to start people on these medicines, but we feel afraid to stop the medicines. So I thought it was a really good idea to see what would happen. These are only people who were ready for it. And I'm not telling you that if you've had a friend or a family member who's on medicine who's doing well, that you should do anything. If they're doing well, you should absolutely stick to your gun. But these people wanted their life to be better. And in fact, taking them off medicines created that for them. And then I began taking more and more people off medicine and then taking them off their diagnosis, and they would get their lives back. It was really a phenomenal experience. I wanted to scream it from the mountaintops. Not everybody was doing that. So that became my true voice moment. And that became the time that I went from being a doctor to being a healer. And that's why I went to the field anyways. In fact, that's why I came to the earth anyways. So I ask you now, where in your life are you being a doctor instead of a healer? Where are you doing what you should, what they count on for, what you know they're asking, rather than what you know is right? And where are you holding back on bringing your true self forward? It's no problem, by the way. It's not like you're a bad person to have done that. We learned very young that not being ourselves pays dividends. If we scream loud enough, maybe we get a lollipop. If we actually blame our sister for doing things that we did, they can get in trouble. I certainly did that. That's why I remember. The crack in the cement got larger over time, and we never really went back to repair it. So we live in that misery of actually speaking something that isn't entirely genuine and authentic with our core self. We then are living that life of quiet desperation. We then are living that life of our song being unsung. But there is good news. We can do something about this, and we can do it today, now, right now. I have 10 principles I want to share with you. 1, pretending to be someone that you're not in order to protect the person that you are is not only ludicrous, it's totally ineffective. When you think about it, being someone you're not is never a protection for anything. And plus, if you're pretending that you're not going to be argued with or hated or trolled or censored or canceled, you're still going to be censored and canceled, even if you're trying to be somebody else. So if you're going to be censored and canceled anyways, you might as well try to be yourself. Number 2, you don't have that much to say about many things going on in the world, but you have a whole lot to say about what you say and what you do. So you do not have to continue to say and do the things that have habitually burdened you up until now. You can do something different starting this second. It's really available. Number 3, speaking authentically is very, very effective, even if people don't agree with you. You open up the space for others to speak authentically, and an honest, open conversation is then actually invited to the space. Number 4, people want authenticity actually more than they want agreement. We sometimes agree just to acquiesce. But the truth is, have you ever heard someone speak something that is diametrically opposed to how you feel about a particular issue and you respect them anyways because they're coming from their heart? Authenticity is really respected by us humans, and we really are looking for it from you and from them. You can get better at bridging that gap. You can get better right now, no matter what your age is, no matter what your upbringing was, the levels of trauma that you've experienced, or whatever your situation is now in your family and your friends and your workspace. The key ingredient here is listening, believe it or not. Communication requires both expressing and listening. And in the listening, I'm talking about listening to the people that you're with, not only what they're saying, but what is being called for. What is really being asked for in the situation that you're in? Can you pay attention and pay respect to all the relevant people and the situations that are there to be addressed? Self-expression comes in multiple different flavors. It's not just vocality like I'm using now. It can also come from creative spaces, such as art, music, dancing, singing, drama, cooking, writing, gardening. Many ways to express yourself. And when you express yourself, that's when you get an opportunity to share with another. I ask you now, as you think about the person you are, many of us sometimes think, oh, I've been a bad person because I haven't been myself. Please forgive yourself. Please accept yourself. Please have compassion over yourself for becoming the exact person you are, the beautiful person that you are right now. And for others, done the same. So I want really to talk to you about, blurting, spilling over, and, like just screaming from the mountaintops is not your true voice. So I want you to get that it's really being creative and delivering it to move the needle forward. You will get applause when you do that. You will get applause whether you hear it or not. People will be refreshed, reinvigorated, and reset. And the applause won't only be in the boardroom and the Rotary room, it will be in your own home, in your living room, and maybe even in your bedroom, where if your partner, if you have a partner, is really looking for more truth from you. This work cannot be done alone. I invite you to actually have real conversations. Conversations in your head are called monologues, and they're not real. This is an opportunity to take incremental steps with the people you know and love close to your life, and you will notice that you're already an influencer. You see, when you speak your true self and it resonates and connects with another, you are making a difference that is actually changing the world. You can do that with one person, 6 people, 10 people, 100 or 1,000 or several thousand. My most recent book is called Find Your True Voice. I know that's a shocking title, and I invite you to actually download it. I have the actual book that I will send to you, an actual copy, and you'll find that at findyourtruevoicebook.com. Findyourtruevoicebook.com. You sign up, and I will send you a copy of that book, where it really goes into a greater depth of what I'm saying. So starting right now, I invite you to the Great Reset. Step into that true voice. Start listening from your heart.
Correct.
Yes.
Or things that shut off one about 4 seconds.
I'm sorry.
Still make grounding then it shuts down here.
Oh, okay. I'm almost done here. Give me a minute and then I got you. Thank you. When you connect with others, you heal the world. And I am of the firm commitment that the only way to end all wars is to bring that true voice of yours. Voltaire said it best. I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to your death your right to say it. I also want to invite you to this upcoming summit that I have that's called WeThePeopleSummit.online, where I have 25 influencers showing us how to be influencers, and all the donations from that are going towards raising $1 million for the people in Ukraine. This has been a devastating war over there. My wife is 100% Ukrainian, and all proceeds go to Ukraine, refugees, children, women who have been displaced and devastated by the war. Welcome to your new life.
Owner.